Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Angry black-eyed kids vandalized home. About a month ago, November 3, 2020, Election Day. It was a little past midnight and I had woken up to a banging sound on my door. My parents were out voting, and my sister was still asleep. I went downstairs quietly so I wouldn't wake my sister up. I had cameras, but I decided not to look at them. When I looked through the little peeping hole on the door, I saw children. They didn't look quite normal though. The little boy, around 8 years old, had these weird shoes and outfit that someone in like the 40s would wear. The girl, around 6, did not look better. She had this haircut that a woman would wear in the 90s and an outfit that a woman would wear in the 70s. Besides that, they looked perfectly normal. "Are you lost?" I asked. "Our parents will be here soon," they both said in unison. "Do you need anything? Can we come in?" Right away I knew that something was off about these kids. Not just the fact that they were dressed weirdly, but the fact that their voices were off. They had voices that number 8-year-old or 6-year-old should have. I suddenly felt dizzy and I knew that something weird was with these kids. "If your parents are almost here, then can't you just wait out here?" I asked. It was a perfectly safe neighborhood and not a robbery or anything had ever went on. I never even ever saw a shitty person walk around here. "Can we come in?" they asked once more. But this time, they weren't asking. They were starting to get angry. "No, you may not," I yelled. "I know this sounds bad that I am saying that a little kid that's lost can't come in my house, but there was something off about these kids." That yell and woke up my sister. She turned on the porch light which helped me see that these kids had black eyes. I screamed and shut the door in their face. My sister asked what was going on, who was that and why I yelled. I told her to just go to bed and don't worry about it. She did as I asked. The kids eventually left, but they did do some damage to my house when I shut the door. They ripped some plants and they cracked the window. Later that night, I did some research on them, and I found out that these black-eyed kids can only come into your house if they get permission. There is a slight chance they will come back soon and I'll be ready. When the kids left, they went into a black car with 2 tall dudes in suits. Just remember, if you ever see a kid with black eyes and pale skin coming towards your house or car, don't let them in. CS.
Black-eyed kid, let me in. I need something to eat. I grew up a latchkey kid. Parents did not arrive home until after 5 p.m. and so. One day after school, early teen, I was sitting at the dining room table doing homework when I hear a very firm knock at the door. Like the kind that cops do. Our elderly neighbor knocked like this when he would come over for whatever reason, so I got up to answer. I opened the door to reveal what appeared to be an 8-year-old boy with sandy blonde hair looking straight down. He was wearing a yellowish but sullied shirt under a gray zip-up hoodie which was dirty as well. It was late spring in the south, and I knew most nearly all the kids our age in our neighborhood and from our school, but did not recognize him at all. Not relegating myself as the pinnacle of knowing everyone, I figured he was a friend of one of my neighborhood friend's little brother, or something like that. I said, "Hi, can I help you?" With a very assertive tone, he said, "Let me in. I need something to eat." Baffled by this kid's gall, I said, "Do I know you?" This time he barked the same thing with a little more gusto, but in a flat tone. Something was very weird about this kid. I asked if I needed to call his mom or anything, same answer. Then I asked if he was friends of so-and-so. No response. I tried to make a little bit of further small talk with him, chummily tapping him on the shoulder. Surprisingly, he was literally as hard as steel. The whole time his gaze was fixed downward, so I leaned in to get a look in his eyes. His eyes were freaking black, a deep black. I asked him if he had been in a fight, no answer. By this time, my alert sensors were up and running, thinking domestic abuse, by his seemingly sullen and brash attitude, etc. I started to get some crackers, and on the way, an alarm went off in my head, and thought, why is his entire orbital area the same color as his eye? After grabbing the crackers and turning to further question him, in mid-sentence I looked again at the doorway. He was gone. Then I started to hear the kid's voice in my head. It was like he was asking someone, why didn't it work? It didn't work. I just brushed it off as a weird experience. Fast forward several years later. I was 25, bored as hell one night, so I decided to read about this black-eyed kid phenomena. Then the memory hit me like a hammer. I was freaked out. Luckily, I had imparted this to a friend when it happened, and he does remember me telling this story. D.
Black-eyed grunge girl. I'm still not exactly sure what happened, all I know was that it was very unsettling, and I still get the creeps thinking about it. This was years ago, I think around 2013 or 2014. It was early fall, late afternoon, but it was a bit dark and gloomy as it was an overcast day. I was driving home from shopping. I was by myself. So I came around a corner and on my right was a fire station. It was empty though. I had to slam on my brakes because the couple cars in front of me had stopped and I figured someone was turning. Then I noticed 2 to 3 cars in the other lane coming towards me were also stopped. The guy in the first car then stuck his head out the window and I was like WTF. So I was trying to see what was going on. Then I saw her. She was just slowly walking down the center line, no care that the road was busy. Just walking straight down the yellow lines. The guys in front of me were yelling, trying to get her attention, but she stayed facing forward. She had her head down a bit, but her eyes were facing up, reminded me of a grunge girl. She was maybe 14 or 15 years old. I started to get the creeps because this looked creepy in itself with all these cars stopped and this random person just walking down the middle of the road, oblivious to all traffic. As she neared my car, I actually rolled up my window because I was starting to feel panicked. Right as she was passing, I decided to knock loudly on the window. Much to my surprise, she turned and looked right into my car. I can't explain her face, but her eyes were totally black. Something was seriously wrong with her. But when I saw her eyes, my heart rate sped up and I didn't know what to do, but she had stopped and was just looking into my car. I cracked the window a bit and was going to ask her if she was okay. She said, "I'm going to die." Honestly, I freaked out. The cars in front of me had left, so I sped off up the hill. But I got a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, so I turned around at an elementary school up ahead and called the police. They told me they were actually already on their way, so I stayed parked and watched her in my rear view until I saw the cops show up. Cops came with their lights on, and I saw her try and jump in front of the officer. They didn't hit her, but once they got her, I just drove home. It creeped me out for weeks. I'll forget about it and then remember it when I'm out driving, or when it's a gloomy day and I get a chill right up my spine. JK.
Black-eyed kid creeps out witness in Cape Town, South Africa. This happened in 2011 when I was in training for Peace Corps service in Cape Town, South Africa. Most houses here have bars on the doors and windows and are surrounded by gates and fences. The village that I trained in was large and sprawling. My host family was wealthier than most, and while the house was really nice, most of the neighbors had much simpler dwellings and tin shacks. Our fence was tall and stable with a thick wall of a gate, and some of the neighboring fences were small barbed wire. The training schedule was packed and I was usually gone all day every day. When I got home in the afternoons, I would often play with some neighborhood kids. Sundays were my only day off. One particular Sunday, towards the end of training, I was home alone. I was outside hanging laundry and noticed 2 small boys, about 7 or 8 or so, in the next yard staring at me. I'm white, and I am used to this reaction. I had never seen these kids before. I smiled at them and continued to hang my laundry. They continued to play and to stare at me. My unease with these kids was growing, and I thought it was because I was annoyed with being stared at. The longer they watched me, the more creeped out I felt. I lit up to notice that they were gone. I quickly went inside and locked the door. The gate was already locked, and there is a tall fence surrounding the property. I look out the window of my bedroom a few minutes later to see one of the kids scaling the fence. I thought about going out there to say something, but felt compelled to stay inside and ignore them. The next time I looked, the kid had just landed in the yard, and somehow he saw me through the sliver of window I was peering out of and made eye contact. Then I noticed that this kid had eyes that were solid black. I felt like he was reaching into me and grabbing my insides. The kid prowled around the windows and door for a while. I don't know what happened to the other kid, but by that time I was totally creeped out. I moved to my permanent site shortly thereafter.
The customer's jet black eyes. I work retail. I'm checking this sweet old couple out at the register. Having a wholehearted typical retail worker speaking to customer conversation, and then boom. I look into the husband's eyes for the first time. This man has jet black eyes. Store goes silent. No one's speaking. I'm overcome with an overwhelming feeling of dread. I wasn't exactly terrified, I was more entranced. Again, the whole store is dead silent. It's as if I've been gripped from my reality and brought into this old man's dimension. I wish I could tell you guys I looked at my surroundings to see why everyone went quiet, but I was just so overcome with a plethora of emotions, staring into this man's completely black eyes, that I just physically couldn't look away. And then, just like that, the man leaves with his wife. I hand him his receipt, he takes his things, and leaves. I was out of breath. I had to take my break early. I'm ashamed to admit I was almost ready to cry. I've literally never been through anything, and I mean anything like that. I did some research when I got home, and I found out a lot about black-eyed children. What was strange about this situation was that the man had to be late 60s, early 70s. What could this mean? It's just so hard to imagine a man casually wearing black contact lenses. And these weren't enlarged pupils. There was not an ounce of white in his eyeballs. And that feeling of dread, the silent store, and the time that seemed to go on forever. This had to be an encounter. I know what I saw. And I promise you all this story is 100% true. I'm worried no one will believe me. J.O.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.